And I wanted to go live because I wanted to talk about the end of the world syndrome or the condition of now, right? And it was something that I was writing based on thoughts that I was having because I always get to a point where I need to zoom out. I need to take a step back and I need to look and see the world. See, I'm a futurist. And as a futurist, what you try to do is you're placing yourself in the future until the future feels real. The reason that you must do that is because you cannot act until, right, the future feels real. And I think that right now there's a confusion about the future, right? And it's because we have this inability to make this decision because a lot of people have an inability to see the future clearly, right? And so if you don't have insight, which is sight to what's going on now, be able to take in data, the references and understanding of what's happening now, then you don't have sight for the future. Not only that, I think that we're in a sentiment right now where there's a state of consistent confusion, disconnection, right? And I think that it's hard to see what's playing into the hands of the people versus what's playing into the hands of the few elites. Right. And I want you all to follow me on this thought process as we kind of go through this and unpack this. And if you have any questions, please type them below. But the question that keeps repeating itself in my mind is where are we today? Right. As a people, Black America, the diaspora, the human family is inside the strange season on this planet Earth. I do not get swept up in the headlines, the reactions, or the algorithmic panic. I want the worldwide view. I want the high vantage point, the full landscape so that people can act accordingly to the role that they want to play. We are in the great transition. I can feel it moving through everything. And I know you can too. What I see right now is a culture losing fragments, people debating for sport, intellectuals crawling out their academic closets because the empire stripped their jobs and now they have to stand on the same social media ground they once looked down on. The irony is in the air. They say that the empire is taking opportunities away while competing for the same opportunities they say no longer exist. This creates a crowded field with no shared direction. Everyone becomes louder, but no one becomes clear. The sentiment today is no unity. It's not unity or even organized division. It is free-floating confusion. It is a storm of individuals inside a system that no longer function as a whole. The structure that once held meaning now cracks under the weight of new technology, shrinking trust, and runaway narratives. Everyone is reacting, but the question becomes is who is building? In a time where it's not of master teachers, it is of master builders, where we have great systems, tools, and technology, but what is the willfulness that we have for the systems, tools, and technology? This moment looks more tribal than anything, and perhaps it may need to be tribal. Perhaps that's the best way that the world works as we try to discover the end of diversity. And by the end of diversity, I mean that we've went along this wrong path or this long path of mingling and connecting people together in this American experiment. And at the end of this is what we get, right? Where intersectionality did not work because you understood that people inside those groups just wanted power that ultimately looked out for their own. And they used other people that went along for that ride, but they was never truly for you, right? You were just an unwitting participant, right, in their fight for more power and freedom, utilizing your struggle, your trauma, right, for their resources. So we have the tribal system. People are forming small circles because the bigger circles, people are dissolving into, or the bigger circles are dissolving, which are the institutions, which are these larger organizations. And maybe tribal systems are necessary because the nation is too fragmented to move as one body. But even the tribe has not clarified their purpose. They gather, but do not build yet. While this is happening, we are witnessing something deeper, a planetary transition. AI Atlas, Epstein revelations, the empire exposed in ways that reveal both wings have been feeding on the system of corruption. We are experiencing deep solar storms, market shocks, Bitcoin dropping as magnetic field shift, social erosion happening in the streets, and every storm carries both cosmic and economic impulse, which is not mysticism. at all. If you can understand the pattern in which you see, then you can understand the cycle in which you're in. This moment feels like the Hopi prophecy of the Blue Kachina star, a signal of the world ending. Not the earth ending, which is completely different, but the world view ending, the world collapsing, right? These entities that have been formed under rituals, rites, rules, orders, and social constructs. Tech elites celebrating the end of democracy and the rise of privatized power. This is an empire trying to reboot itself without the people. What they call a decline is actually their desire for consolidation. So the question becomes, where does that leave the people? Where does that leave reset? Where does that leave the people? Where does that leave black and brown people? The diaspora as a whole. Hmm. The same way empires collapse in the past, with their stories stop working, their narratives fail. The narrative of their power, of their supremacy, of their eliteness. This is what we're experiencing right now. The illusion of the elites has been so grandeur for so long. The stories that we tell about them, now they're being exposed. And now this belief and this idea of who they are in the first place is falling. Once the story falls, they have nothing else to stand on. That is the narrative warfare of today. And I'm sure other countries are just clapping and laughing at America and its citizens as America falls. But as I put in one of my songs, as America falls, I want it all because we deserve it all. Rome fell way before the actual walls fell. It was the mind that fell, the trust that fell, the imagination that fell, right? And they say an empire is destroyed from within, which means it is an inside job. But we never knew it was going to be an inside blow job. Now that's crazy talk, Bubba. You know what I'm talking about? Huh. We never knew that we were going to hear about the head of state giving head to other heads of state. It's a wild timeline that we in right now. And for the MAGA people, that might be hard to swallow or not, given that your leader does. What we see in America looks very similar to the loss of trust that happened in Rome, the loss of legitimacy, the loss of the mythos, right? The Curtis Yarvins, the Peter Thiel of the world, the tech elites are celebrating the end of democracy and the rise of privatized power. This is the empire trying to reboot itself without the people utilizing technocracy, utilizing these technological machines that they want to replace the governing elites in the first place. What they call a decline is actually their desire for consolidation. So the question becomes is, where does that leave the people? Where does that leave Black America, Native America? Where does that leave the African diaspora? Right now, a satanic world is emerging, not of horns, not fire, not hellfire and brimstone and some red devil underneath the ground in some metaphysical world, but a devil of confusion. Because we're now in a state of consistent confusion. Social media has become a space of social disconnection, even though we're more interconnected than ever. But we are now a world without direction, a world without clarity, a world that produces people who know how to argue better than they know how to imagine. Arguing about the world that is, instead of imagining and constructing the world that can't be, because you have to do both, because they're the world that is in the way, but truly is just a distraction from you imagining the world that can be. Don't let that go over your head. A world that only teaches you to fight narratives instead of create them. But a people without imagination have no future. A people without imagination have no power. A people without imagination have nothing but what they're given, what's conjured from somebody else's imagination. Truly, The only thing that exists in the world is belief itself. And my belief is that the old system cannot hold the mind that is emerging. The complexity of the world has reached a point to where the old systems are going to bubble. Religion, organized religion as we know it, is at its edge. The leaders of these religions are at their edge. Tech as we know it is at their edge. The rituals that shaped the last era no longer work because the environment changed. The world changed. When a new environment appears, a new human must follow, a new mind must follow. We are shifting from simple survival to actualization and into maximization. And eventually, these have to converge into a synchronization of both. This creates a different being, a different psychology, and this requires a different mind. When we talk about actualization, it was always about how do we go into the inner potential and bring out that inner world. Getting past survival, getting to the point of thriving, getting to the point of planning one's imagination and philosophies, getting to the point where doing the thing that you actually want to do, living in your gifts, actualizing the full self. Then we're talking about maximization, that even if you don't have it within your potential, you can still utilize external things such as technology tools to enhance oneself, to enhance one's mind, capabilities. So we have an old generation that focused on their potential and what they can bring that is internal. Now we have a younger generation that is growing up with machines that is focusing on how to use external machines to maximize self. So therefore, we're going from the actualization to maximization. And the problem is that we have a younger generation that is able to make $100,000 overnight, but they haven't done any internal work. So they're not guided by nothing. There's no compass. So now you have a generation that is maximizing themselves without any actualization. So they don't have any wisdom. They don't have any guidance on what to do with their power. And that is the problem with the world, because there was a point in time where we had divine willfulness on in protest towards a world that is, but we didn't have the resources to build the world that we want. Now we have the resources to build the world that we want externally, but our internal compass is lost and confused about what we should build in the first place. This is how you get a generation with billion-dollar tools, but a cheap imagination. And when you disconnect a generation from the past, there's a level of meaningless that you leave them stuck with stuck without an identity. And without that identity, you can never have a purpose. This is why I keep calling for a cognitive renaissance. This ever requires a level of higher consciousness. It requires a supermind, a cognitive reset, a reconnection. If we do not shift the mind, we will misread the moment. We will misinterpret the signs, and we will continue to be manipulated by the information warfare that is distracted by the noise of collapsing empire. Not only the information warfare, but the cognitive warfare, because if you can control how a person thinks, you can control what they think. So let's analyze the sentiment. Black America is in a state of exhaustion and awakening at the same time. The state of knowing that we're tired, but knowing we must fight. We see economic pressure, cultural disillusion, increased skepticism of institutions, a hunger for meaning, distrust of traditional leadership, a growing desire for sovereignty and self organization, rising individual brilliance but declining collective alignment. This is the perfect chaos during the transition. This is the breakdown before new formation. History shows us that in this cycle, in this pattern, every empire has a moment where it cannot reconcile the old myth with the new reality. This is where we are. The people began to see, or the people began to lose faith. The elites began to consolidate power, and then we start to innovate. in the margins of society. The future opens, but the question becomes is will we recorrect our intentions because our intentions are our aim. And if we have no aim, then it's just chaos. The tribe becomes the first unit of stability, finding a circle that you can be connected to. But without imagination, without a story for that tribe, it only becomes a memory reflecting off the past or what you think should be done, looking in old books, trying to find a way forward, but having no clarity on the inside of now. This is why we always start with self awareness. And a generation that is confused, that lacks self awareness to know who they are. They believe that they're going into deep introspection, but really there's this sort of social transhumanism where there's a fusion of all ideas and trying to figure out how do we accept all. But it's not truth. I'll tell you this as a Black Muslim American, and y'all might not realize this, we are one of the most discriminated groups in America, right? Yet we're often never fought for. Our rights are not fought for. As somebody who is in the culture, been in the culture, and has made extreme amount of impact in waking the minds of the people in the global diaspora, literally putting up my money, traveling around the world to awaken the minds and teach them, I barely ever get recognized by any Black media. And it's not because they don't know it exists. The very people that run the publications they follow. But it's because they discriminate against Black Muslims in America. And it is not that they personally disagree. They respect the hell out of us, but their masters would not allow them to validate us. So that puts us in a very uncomfortable position because the very people that you're fighting for are not fighting for you. And then it makes you make a decision because then you have to think about your own energy output and the time in which you are living and how to best utilize your time to be the most effective while you're living. And then that's when you go and say, no, I'll focus on my tribe. I'll build with my own because while you want us to go fight for everybody, who is actually fighting with us for us? So this is why I believe in the tribe system. Because in that tribe, you can have a single belief. All of this confusion of saying we accept everybody by, but at the same time, there's always exclusion of groups. And those groups that you're excluding, right, you're leaving no room for you also to take on an understanding of their identity and celebrate it at the same time. Let's be realistic about this. So in this time, there can be no true unity because in order for there to be unity, things will have to get so bad in America. And I mean worse than what they are. But I don't know what that looks like because I don't know what the priority of the masses is. I don't know what people even care about anymore. And that's because we all have fragmented identities and they so successfully separated our stories. One story is about one person's religion, another story is about somebody's sexual identity, one story is about somebody's political beliefs, right? There's all of these different stories, narratives, identities that we claim that would not allow us to build because we don't have one that is bigger than all of them. And so when you have an identity that is bigger than all of these fragmented ones, which I thought growing up was that we are all Black. It used to be that easy, but now it is not. Because even in the fall of America, there's this illusion of choice that we can pick and choose who we work with or not, who we build with, who we celebrate, who we tolerate. And all this does is play into the hands of our common enemy. Who's liberal? Who's conservative? Who's Republican, MAGA, Democrat, Socialist Democrat? But when we look at the word elites, it's funny how we can easily consolidate them into one category of people: those who are elite, those who have the power. It does not matter if they are Democratic elites. It doesn't matter if they're Republican elites. None of that matters. It matters if they are elite. But in Black America, and the people that are poor at the bottom, they're separated by every identity under the sun. The condition of now is a test of imagination. It is a test of whether we can build something new in the middle of a world that is ending. Can our generation get together and can we communicate clearly? It is a test of whether we can synchronize our spiritual selves, our technological self, and our sovereign self into an integrated human system. If we fail the test, we fall with the old world. If we pass the test, we rise into a new world. This is the moment that determines where we go. And this is why cognitive renaissance is not an idea, it is a requirement. It is the very way in which we save ourselves. It is the clarity in a time of confusion. It is the only way to build the mental strength for new systems that want to emerge. It is the only way to choose our future instead of inherit someone else's. The world is not ending. The narrative is ending. The mythos is ending. So the question becomes, is do we accept the responsibility to write a new one and to live it out? That becomes the conversation now. What is the next story? Because this one is old. This one is tired. This one is dead. I know you're tired of it like I am. The current story serves us not. Are we not a chosen people? Did we not go through all the things we were supposed to go through and come out on the other side? Now I'm going to need you to get your head in the game for a minute. I'm going to need you to get some clarity in a moment to where your imagination is the most important nation on the planet Earth. Let the world fall and let yours rise. Stop holding on to old systems, because every time they allow us to get someone on one side, a point on one side, oh, the Democrats won a little here in the primary. Oh, then we won a little here. Then the Republicans won a here. But in the Epstein files, it was both Democrats and Republicans. And they've been protecting each other this whole time, fooling the American people as if there are sides in the first place. There is only comfort in an empire, but only comfort for a short amount of time, because there is no utopian empire. There is only consistent anarchy, because when one thing works for 4 years, then it comes another 4 years, then it comes another 4 years, then it's, how can we live like this? How is this sustainable? How? All we dealing with is immediate threats. We never dealing with the future. That's it. We just keep going back and forth over and over and over and over again, picking a new ruler, new ruler, new ruler, new ruler, new ruler. And every once in a while, they throw in a little glitch like the movie Matrix to reset the belief in the system. But the system will always be the system. It will always be the same. The indigenous people, Black people, the diaspora around the world, are we not learning? If we're not learning, we're not living. We're just a dead people, blind, deaf, and dumb to the truth. Any self-respecting people would have revolted a long time ago. But we're continuously looking for hope in a system. We're in an abusive relationship, still looking for good traits. But it's so easy to understand that when one is in a bad relationship and one is abused, you would tell them, leave this person. You would almost believe that there is no redemption for this person at all. Yet a very system that abuses you over and over and over and over again you continue to re-fall in love with it. You continue to look for hope inside of it. And hope, 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 hope. Hope keeps you hanging on to a world that is trying to kill you, that is trying to drown you, that you are suffering in, that you're not thriving in, that you're not evolving in. Why must you learn to swim in waters that are meant to drown you? Why not build your own calm seas? Why not build your own world? I don't have every answer, but as I travel around the world, my goal is to build a global community. I'm working with my people to build out this global community so that I can have my own tribe. And in that tribal system, right, we work on global projects together. We build on land together. We invest and we protect each other. And we cannot have everybody. It only takes a small group of people to build, support, and protect each other. Because there are way too many people who, at the end of the day, will never be our kind. And by our kind, I mean that you get along with people in a more homogenous state to where y'all have agreement on what the world should be, on what story that we should believe. There's only one thing in this world, and that is belief. And whatever we believe becomes reality, and everything else is done. I believe that the religions will bubble. I believe that the tech will bubble. I believe the economy is bubble. The whole world is a bubble. And mostly because it is too complex to be controlled by old systems. When we talk about a transition period, all those things must die. And there must be a renewing, a renaissance, a rebirthing. Are we ready for the responsibility that we inherited in our generation to have to create our own world? I know it's tough, right? That responsibility is tough. New systems, new language, new ideas, new economy, new stories, new narratives, new media, new ways of dressing and doing things, new ways of living amongst each other, new cities, new operations, new systems, new institutions, a complete refresh of a system that is dying. What a responsibility, what a time to be alive in. Do not mistake the survival in the moment for survival in the future. Just because we're getting through this moment does not mean that things will not get progressively worse if we don't focus on building on our own. The syndrome at the end of the world is that people are waiting for it to fall, just biding our time, thinking that the fall is the end when the fall is just a new beginning. Stop waiting for the end and create the new beginning. That is the call today. This is why we created Zion. And you will hear more information about it, some of the projects we plan on working on. And the only way currently to get in is to go to my Instagram page and DM me the word Zion. Apply to be a citizen in our new world that we building. I can't work with everybody. I don't want to work with everybody. I am not here to save anybody. I am here to evoke the savior within yourself to save yourself. If you're holding on to an old world, then may you enjoy the fall of that world, because I will be pushing for the fall of the world that you're holding on to. And if you happen to be hanging on with that system, then so be it, you go with that system. And I don't have the emotional bandwidth to feel sorry for you, because you've made a decision, and that decision is yours, because we all have free will. End of the world syndrome is that people are waiting for it to end instead of thinking about it as a new beginning. Stop waiting for the world to end. Stop just reacting to what's happening. Interact with the opportunity. Discover more of your responsibility in this time. That responsibility is building out the world. That is what our responsibility from our generation is that we inherit the responsibility to build something new. That is why we get to enjoy the fireworks of the fall. But who else you think will build it? Our ancestors? We are the ancestors that must build for future generations to come. But if you stay distracted, then you will build nothing at all but opinions and comments and likes and social media pages. And maybe get a couple of dollars for yourself while arguing with other people who have money, thinking you've become something, but not really. If you only become what they allow you to become, then even your identity is wrapped up in the fall of the world as well. This is the era of permissionlessness. You literally get to do whatever you want to, be whoever you want to be. It is the greatest time to be alive if you are conscious. But if you're not,